Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session. We are so happy to have you with us today. My name is Jared Fitzpatrick, and I'm on the Kanarys team, focused on user engagement and outreach. I'm joined today by my colleagues from Kanarys, Stacy Guillen, our Director of Business Development, and Mandy Price, our CEO. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started. First, to ensure that everyone could hear during the discussion and that there's no distractions, please keep your microphone on mute. If you do have any audio or video issues, you can message Stacy and she'll provide instructions to help you. Second, this is designed to be an interactive session and we've sectioned off a lot of time for you to ask questions. And so we really want you to be able to use the Q&A feature during the webinar so that you can ask those questions and we can answer some of your questions. Third, this session is being recorded and we will provide this recording to all of the attendees and registrants after the webinar. All right, so I see people are still joining. For those of you who are just now joining, again, wanted to say welcome. Again, my name is Jared Fitzpatrick, and I'm the Vice President of User Engagement at Kanarys. And on Kanarys.com, people from diverse backgrounds can anonymously provide feedback to their employers on issues related to their lived experiences in the workplace. We at Kanarys then use that feedback to help companies make data-driven decisions about their diversity and inclusion initiatives. And we highlight the companies that are really committed to making their workplace more inclusive. On Kanarys.com, we also have a job board where you can apply for jobs, a blog with relevant articles related to diversity and inclusion, and a resources page that has curated content as well as the videos like the one that we're doing today. And these are resources that are truly relevant to most companies at all stages of their inclusion journey. Now, as part of our ongoing commitment to support inclusion, we created this multi-part webinar series that really focused on helping companies and our community to advance inclusion during the COVID-19 pandemic. However, after the tragic killing of George Floyd and the national and really global outcry for justice, we knew that we had to do something to bring people together to take action. Just a personal note, I really understand that this is a heavy time for most of us. The killing of George Floyd, not just George Floyd, but Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, others that are named and unnamed is tiring. And I know a lot of us feel mentally, physically, emotionally tired. So even amidst all of that and the heaviness of what we're going through, I've been really encouraged to see that a lot of the people in our networks, in our community, have really been stepping up to the plate to build on the momentum that we have right now to drive action and change. So I'm excited to have several people on the line with me today who will be speaking with you that are truly part of this movement and are change agents in their own right and in their own space. The first of which is actually our CEO and co-founder, Mandy Price. And so I just want to do a quick introduction of Mandy, and really needs no introduction, but Mandy was previously a corporate partner at a large law firm and spent over 12 years as an attorney. In addition to being our fearless leader, though, she has also been named one of the top 50 women in tech by the National Diversity Council. And this is a little known fact, but there are less than 50 Black women in history who have ever raised over $1 million in outside funding. And Mandy is one of those women, one of those Black women. So I'm very happy to have you with us, Mandy. I'll move on to our guests from Ericsson. Very happy to have them with us as well. The first person that I will introduce is Albert Wyndham. Now, Albert is the co-chair for the Ericsson African American Alliance. He's also a vice president at Ericsson and has over 25 years of experience in people management and over 30 years in the telecommunications industry, with both Nortel and Ericsson. In addition to that, Albert served our country for 6 years in the United States Air Force. So thank you, Albert, and thank you for being here today. Renita Sanders is the communications lead for the Ericsson African American Alliance, and she is also a project manager at Ericsson and has over 12 years of experience in the telecommunications industry. And then last but certainly not least, my friend Laura Ramirez is the Director of Diversity and Inclusion at Ericsson North America and is truly responsible for Ericsson's D&I corporate strategy. She helped to launch 4 of the new employee resource groups and is privileged to lead all 7 employee resource groups, including the African American Alliance at Ericsson. And prior to joining Ericsson, she spent 17 years at the AT&T Global Headquarters in Dallas. So thank you all for being here today. Laura, can you give us more background about what you do at Ericsson and what the Black employees are working on right now?
Absolutely. So first of all, I want to say to you, Jared, Mandy, Stacy, thank you again for just the partnership with Kanarys. I think the reason we're on here today is just to give our team a broader voice, to be able to share their emotions, their feelings, and also be able to support others, right, that are going through this journey as well. My role within Ericsson is really just to, as you mentioned, build out the D&I function, to really support every single aspect from D&I, whether it's our policies, working with our legal team, the UR, how are we attracting talent, the right talent, the best talent. So everything within D&I, you know, I'm privileged to be able to lead that effort, but I don't do it alone, right? I cannot be successful without the help and the partnership and support from partners like Kanarys, but more especially my ERGs, my 7 fantastic employee resource groups. And my, you know, one of the parts that I love is really guiding and helping and supporting my ERGs. I mean, they are fantastic. They are great. And we've been able to allow that autonomy for them to be able to thrive. And so, you know, as far as, I don't want to share too much because I know Faisal and Renita will, but I'd be remiss if I didn't say that I don't feel your pain, Jared. I feel your pain. I understand your pain. And I remember, and I'm sorry, y'all, I remember just, you know, having the conversations with my people and to really be able to walk through this with them and help and support them. It's an emotional journey, it is, but, you know, we're on the right path to make change, not these check the box exercises at all, but really listening to our people. And you'll hear a little bit more about that from my team. But again, you know, there's just a lot of efforts underway, but I will say that it starts with our people. It's listening to our people and what they need, because I don't have all the answers. Jared, you don't have all the answers. Our people don't have all the right answers, but if we work together, we'll be able to get there.
So Jared, can I just say one thing there and say, I so much agree with everything Laura just said. And, you know, Kanarys was created based off of my own experiences that I had in the workplace. As you noted, I practiced law for 12 years, but I felt that no matter where I was in the structure, even though I was a partner, that it was difficult to bring up issues of race in the workplace. Those were met with resistance, defensiveness, that it was impossible to talk about these issues in a meaningful way to make the change that is so needed. And so the platform is developed for the exact moment that we're in. You know, not all organizations have as thoughtful or great leader as Laura, right? To understand that these issues have to be addressed from a systemic basis, that we cannot continue to, you know, kind of relegate D&I to marketing or to celebrations, that we have to really look internally within our systems, our procedures, our processes, and say, are they continuing to perpetuate these inequities? And how do we create an environment where people are free and comfortable to have these courageous conversations, that they're not going to be met with resistance when they're bringing up issues of race or racist behavior. And that's what traditionally Black employees have felt. We knew that it was the most dangerous thing for our careers to bring up race. And so although, and one of the things that we've always known, right, that's the way the platform is built, is telling our stories, being able to have that safe environment to talk about this, and to have that be, I don't want to say validated, because we knew our experiences, but to be validated through the data, right? Using our collective voices to be able to say, this isn't an anomaly. This is happening to all of us. And to showcase that it was a systematic issue. And I think that's what's so important about what we're seeing right now in the movement. What we're seeing is people speak out, and us being willing to stand up and say, this isn't normal. You know, I feel like for so long, we felt that this is what it was normal, right? This is just what you have to deal with if you are a Black professional in corporate America. And I'm energized. I am renewed, although it's been very, very taxing. I have not been as motivated and hopeful about what the future is actually in store than I have in the past few weeks.
And Mandy, if I can just add, kudos to you for being the visionary of this platform. Kudos to you for creating a solution that now we can benefit. So anyone that's listening and that's on this call, and if you have not encouraged your own employees, or employees, if you're on this call, I encourage you to leverage the platform, leverage the tool, let your voices be heard. If you're not able to do that verbally, right? Because, you know, we're building up to that courage, and we're there, right? But if you're not able to do that verbally, leverage Kanarys, leverage that, and start to really, you know, score and rate your company as it relates to DEI, right? Equality. That's what we're talking about in this moment, in this time. This is something that should have happened a long time ago. But now, Mandy, with your platform, we can be the voice.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Well, I want to go ahead and get started with the questions, because I know that's what people came for. They want to know what to do. And so I know we have a few people who have already asked some questions, but before we jump into those, Mandy, I wanted to provide you the opportunity to ask our Ericsson staff if some of the questions that we had heard in advance.
Yeah, sure. So, you know, we know that we've seen a lot of companies release statements, which again is great. And we've seen a varied magnitude of those statements, right? We've seen statements that are kind of just the blanket, you know, we don't support racial injustice. We've seen some of the statements coupled with actions and donations as far as we're going to contribute to these causes that are helping to fight racial injustice. A lot of those causes are externally. And then we've seen a couple of companies as well internally commit to actions to improve racial equity within their workplace. And so I want to pose the question to Renita and Albert, who lead up the ERG at Ericsson, the Black ERG, as far as how can ERGs hold organizations accountable for systemic changes and respond to racial injustice that we're seeing within our nation?
Mandy, this is Albert, and thank you again for having us here today, especially with what Laura said. Thank you for the platform that you're giving us. And I think the answer to your question involves having people like Laura, whom are with our diversity and inclusion team, make sure that we do hold ourselves accountable as a corporation, make sure that we do provide avenues and safe spaces for employees to speak up and speak out when they see something that might be happening egregious, or either something where an employee feels uncomfortable. Those types of situations still exist today in corporate America. We had a session just a couple of days ago with our African American employee group, and there were some comments that came through that just touched our hearts, but at the same time made us sad that these types of things are still happening in today's work environment. But more than anything else, we know that our executive leadership is not going to sit idly by and let these things go either unnoticed or without them speaking out. My co-chair, who can't be with us today, Fasalia Johannes, had actually written a letter to the CEO of our North American market area. And she was so filled with passion and with a sense of, I have to do something regarding what's going on in our society today outside of the corporation, that she felt compelled to write that letter. I give her kudos because not only is she a member of the Ericsson family, but she's a mother of 3 Black boys. A mother of 3 Black boys who felt compelled to say something because of what she felt might happen to her 3 Black boys in the world they're growing up in today. At some point in time, those 3 Black boys are going to be 3 young adults whom will look to have a level playing field for them for any position that they aspire to gain, any job that they want to go into. And they should have the knowledge and feeling that they don't have to take a back seat to anybody, that they are just as special as anyone else, that they are not going to be looked at by people whom have privilege and sometimes don't know it, but they are going to be seen as equal. Thank you for the question, man.
Thank you, Albert. It's so great. You know, one of the things you talked about was that you guys wrote a letter. And we kind of started out by talking about some companies have been really proactive and have written really strong letters. Some have not been as proactive, and some companies haven't written letters at all. I kind of want us to kind of delve into and to talk about the steps that we can take to encourage our companies to write these letters. You know, how to approach these issues if we're receiving resistance. And I'd love for, you know, some of the other panelists to chime in here. One of the things that we've done at Kanarys is put together some resources with some templates, different levels of templates of kind of the different stages that people may be in, right? Your company hasn't released a letter at all. Your company released a letter, but it doesn't have any action statements, so that we can call upon our leadership of our companies to really take some proactive steps. So I'd love Renita, Laura, others to kind of chime in with, in addition to using those templates, what are some things we can do to really encourage leadership and especially tips for leaders that may not be amenable to this, right?
Renita, do you want to add in, or Albert? If not, I will.
Well, I'll definitely let you expand, Laura, but before you expand, I just want to speak on the behalf of Ericsson, because currently at Ericsson, those actions have been taken, and we have excellent executive sponsorship support, right? We have developed the listen, learn, and expand model, and currently we're in the listening phase, right? Although we still have not decided, you know, what next steps are going to be taken outside of what has already been done, we do see the importance of it. So right now we are listening and we are gathering the thoughts, and we have created that safe space that Albert spoke on. We are going outside and, you know, seeking the help of specialists and you know, just the professional counsel that we can use to leverage their knowledge on what we should do, right? So definitely, Laura, I'll let you speak on, you know, the actual steps that companies have not taken. But as far as Ericsson is concerned, we have taken steps. We are in the listening phase, and we do understand that there is more to come.
right? And Mandy and Renita, thank you for starting us off. And there's so much that, and there's 3 phases, right? We're listening, we're going to learn, and we're going to stand with our people. Right now, we're still in that phase of listening and allowing that space for our employees to be heard. Again, we're learning with them, we're supporting with them based on their feedback. But have we put actions into play? 100%. Can I speak to those with timelines right now? No. But know that, again, for us, it's not a check the box. I'm going to put a statement out and that's it. Our CEO means business, right? Our leadership means business. I mean business. Our ERGs mean business. So there's action items. I mean, I'm not going to speak to our strategy right now, but things that I can speak in general terms are review your policies. What do your policies say right now? Are your people protected at this moment? D&I training, right? I know that's going to be something that everyone's pushing. We're hearing our employees, and that's something that they're asking for. And again, that's generally, everyone should be exploring that at this time. There's, we can talk about those safe space. The one call we had on Monday was very successful, and we want to continue to allow those safe spaces, right? Once we have the plan with timelines, right? I don't want to speak before my CEO does, but once we do, we'll be more than happy to be able to share. You're going to actually hear about those actions, because for us, it's not, let me just put the statement out and that's it. That's not the way we function. That's not the way we run our D&I program here at Ericsson.
Well, that's so comforting, Laura. And I want to talk just about a couple of the strategies, right? Because unfortunately, not all companies are as forward thinking. And so trying to give some practical tools for individuals that may not be, that may be pushing up against this resistance, right? From the leadership of their company. And so let's just kind of talk openly about some of the things that we have seen other companies doing. We've seen the town hall sessions, right? Those have been tremendous. But what we've also seen is that we've seen some companies and their employees kind of push them to say, that's great that we are doing town halls, we should do more of those. But what are we going to do as far as looking internally within our own practices? We are encouraged by the fact that you are supporting Equal Justice Initiative and Black Lives Matter and LDF, right? That's great. We want to see that. We want you to do those things. But what are things that we should be advocating for internally to ensure that our own internal policies are not perpetuating these inequities? And so, we've seen some companies like Estee Lauder put out announcements and statements saying that we're going to ensure that the demographics of our workforce, especially as it pertains to Black employees, matches society. They put some metrics out. And so we're tracking this on Kanarys as well. And we'll be putting it on our resources page. So as people look for resources and how to talk to their leadership teams, they're able to cite to these examples. But I think, one of the things that's important is that we make sure that there's these internal assessments, that in addition to the town halls, that we're doing the work to ensure that our own house is clean, right? That we are creating an environment internally where people have the same opportunities, because we know that's the nature of these issues, that they're systemic, that it's not just one company, that we know overall when we look in totality that African Americans do not have the same promotional opportunities, that there are opportunities gaps there. We know that when we look at pay, there's pay disparities. So I think as individuals start to talk internally within their organization and they say, what can we do? What are the things we should be advocating for? It's these types of things. How internally are we measuring these things? Yeah. So go ahead, Laura, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, Mandy, yes, everything you're saying, yes, because Renita and Albert can attest to this, right? It's not just creating the safe space, right? Of course, yes, we're listening. We want to hear, we want to know, we want to support. But in those safe space calls, it's also what are those tangible action items that we as an organization need to put in place, revisit, revamp to best support you now. The old days are done, right? If I mark our society, there was time before George, the old ways of working, right? Mr. Floyd that passed away. Now is the time where we need to pivot. Now is a time for real change. So what are you as an organization, as an employee, as an employer, as a CEO, as a DI specialist, as an ERG leader, are you going to do post, him passing, right? This is a time for change. So in that safe space call, we're not going to share obviously the feedback. We so many emotions, but from that, I really wanted to derive action points. And Mandy, absolutely, let's revisit our policies. Hey, we want to see more representation, right? I think every company wants to see that. Now, how do we work to get there where we need to be, right? The D&I training, how do we get there, right? And it's in a partnership with our ERG and our people to make sure we're hitting the mark. It can't just be me or our leadership team saying, we think this is the best approach. No. So we do have those action items. And I always want my ERGs to have that challenger mindset, Andy, because when they have that challenger mindset, it's going to make us better, right? And Renita and Albert can attest, it's not just what the organization, but what do our people need, whether it's line managers or leadership, to get better, to make us better in the end, right? If we change behaviors from our people, where there's pockets of disparities, if we change those behaviors, we're going to be a great organization in the end. So absolutely, they have that challenger mindset. I want it, I asked for it. And so we are having actions. Again, it's not just a statement for us.
And Mandy, to add to that, I just want to say yes, we need to have those types of things in place, but it's also incumbent upon us as Black people, as Black employees, to speak up. We have far too long let our voices be silent and just accepted these things that have happened. We need to find the courage within ourselves to make sure that we identify those acts when they take place. You can't sit in a conference room in a meeting and let someone get away with saying something that is racially disparaging. You can't sit in a conference room in a meeting and let someone degrade you in a fashion that you feel is degrading and not say something. Whether you say something at that exact moment in time, or you say something after that meeting is over with to that person specifically, one-on-one, it's our obligation to do that. We must make folks realize the things that make us feel unjust, that things that make us feel like we are second-class citizens, the things that make us feel that we are inferior because we know we're not. We add to the diversity and the strength of diversity everywhere, not just in the corporations, but in society in general. So we need to speak up. And by using this platform that you have, this forum, this is a start and the way that we should start doing it.
And Mandy, the only thing I want to add as well, sorry, is that, I think in a moment like this, right, a moment that we're all experiencing, you really kind of understand how serious your D&I leaders are, right? You really understand where their heart is in this space and the organization as well, because again, whoever's overseeing the D&I function within your organization, it starts with them. What environment are they creating for their people, right? So that's something else that I want to call out, because if you have a D&I leader in your organization and you're not still at today hearing from your people or about your people, recommendations, suggestions, feedback, there might be an issue there, right? And that might be something that you need to address as well. But again, it really starts with a partnership from the D&I team and the ERGs and your people.
No, I absolutely agree with you, Laura. And something Albert said there, is speaking up and speaking out. And we definitely do. But kind of going back to what I said earlier, I would be remiss to not kind of talk about the challenges of speaking out, right? The constraints that people are under, especially because I know when I was working, and I'm sure many of the folks participating in the webinar are the only, right? And so how do we speak out a lot of the times, being the only, when our country doesn't know how to have conversations on race, right? People are leaning into it now, but most of the time when these issues are brought up, the defensiveness, the kind of retaliation that employees will then feel when they bring these issues up. So I think it's so important as we talk about this, and as we talk about what are the things organizations can do, is to create structures where these safe conversations can be held. We're seeing them by the town halls, but how do those ongoing conversations look, right? We can't always have town halls. So what are the processes? You know, Kanarys is one way, because that's what we do, allow that anonymous feedback. But some kind of ombudsman or other structures that organizations can put into place to facilitate these discussions.
So Mandy, it is right now, again, you know, you'll probably hear me have these or say courageous conversations quite a bit during this call, because that's what we have to start doing. And it is allowing that safe space for people to speak up, but it's not just the webcast or town halls or safe space calls. I know our leaders are asking, how do I support, right? So think about it from an organization. It's ongoing messaging. It's key messaging for your LT, how they can support, how they can be allies, right? These are things that we're currently working on, and it's to really address and keep the conversation going, right? Because again, we have to acknowledge what our people are saying and then putting actions behind that. But there's going to be continuous conversations, but it's not going to start with my CEO, right? It's, you know, now it trickles down and everyone's involved at this point. But again, it's imperative if you bring that awareness, and then also, you know, start to reiterate, if you have policies that say, you know, we don't tolerate this, right? Leverage that in your key messaging. You know, we don't tolerate it. There's no tolerance for that at Ericsson. So reinforce that messaging in your communication, right? And then also, if your company like us, we have channels to where if there is an issue, report it, right? So we're going to start to reshare that. We did that in the summer of last year. But we're going to bring it back to say, hey, if you have been discriminated against, here's the number to call. Here's the email address, and here's the site that you can click on to report an issue, right? So I think by you kind of resurfacing that information that I'm sure hopefully all your companies have with the messaging, people are going to start to feel safe. They're going to start to feel supported. They're going to want to start reporting those issues, and hopefully there's not a lot in your organization, but those pockets that do surface, you know how to address them, right? Because again, hopefully the majority of the companies that are on here today, their policies do reflect that they don't tolerate it. They don't tolerate racism. And if your policies don't reflect that, here's a moment in time after George where you can reflect on that and make changes there.
Mandy, one of the main things I want to just make a comment on what you said earlier with respect to speaking up and with respect to levels. We had a discussion, or have been having ongoing discussions within Ericsson with respect to how do we mirror the change within the corporation that needs to happen along with the change in society that needs to happen. We need to have better representation at the lower levels within the corporation. It starts with moving from a manager to a director, from a director to a VP, from a VP to a senior VP. Kind of like in society, change is going to have to start at the lower levels in the appellate courts, right? We can't just have a president that looks like us, but then at the appellate courts, we don't have representation there, and the laws that are being put in place and enacted don't favor us. So we need to start doing things at those lower levels and making those opportunities available, but not only making them available, having the training that goes along with it, so that when those folks at the lower levels rise up and they want to become either a director or a VP, they are set up for success and not for failure.
Albert, I agree so much with what you said. And I know I'm getting pinged that we're getting a lot of questions and we need to answer those, so we'll move to that. But, you know, one of the kind of things I just wanted to throw out there, and hopefully this will spur some other questions as well as we move into the forum kind of aspect of it, is, you know, a lot of companies have non-discrimination policies, right, that prohibit racist speech. But I think what we're seeing and what so many of us know is kind of overt racist speech is not as common, right, in the workplace. You're going to see more microaggressions. And to your point, Albert, of kind of talking about the laws and the system, you know, that's what we're seeing a lot of the barriers, right, is the structures, the way the structures and systems are put together. And so as we kind of go back to our companies and say, what are the actions we can do? Some of the actions have to kind of move away from just saying, okay, we have a non-discrimination policy, we're good, and thinking more about how do we internally look at our systems and our company policies and procedures and see if those are producing these inequities that we know exist within the corporate structure. And so I think, to your point, looking at every system, every level, reassessing our talent acquisition process, our promotional process, the way pay is done, all of those things from a system level need to be looked at. So Jared, I'm gonna turn it over to you and to Laura, because I think you guys have questions that have been coming from the audience.
Jared, do you mind if I do want to, at least if we can, Jared, ask, I want to ask my ERG to be able to share what we're doing to celebrate and commemorate Juneteenth. I think that would be, you know, I would be remiss if we didn't talk about that. That's coming up, and I really want to just share what we're doing there.
No, yes. Yeah, go ahead, Laura.
Okay.
Yes, I'll actually share in that space. So yes, we do understand the importance of Juneteenth. We understand the celebration that it has with our culture, right? So to further go back to the space that we're in right now at Ericsson, you know, we're in the listening area. Everyone is curious to know, you know, about our culture. We have their ears now, you know, and so we decided to add to our celebration by giving some history, right, as to where Juneteenth originated from, as to why we celebrate it, right? We want to use that platform not only to celebrate, but we've opened up the celebration to literally the whole organization, right? And we're going to use that as a vehicle to educate, because you can't understand us unless you understand our history and how we got to where we are now. So we definitely have already planned it. The invitations have already gone out, and we definitely will provide some history as well as some education in that forum.
Thanks, Renita. And then Mandy, if I can just ask them one other question. Renita, Albert, whoever wants to answer, because I think it's important, right? And you'll speak to this, right? But, you know, what are you currently doing as an ERG to support the Black community right now? What are we doing? Can you share to everyone that's listening today what we're doing?
Sure, I would love for Albert to share.
Yes, well, we definitely are partnering with our sister ERGs that are out there from other corporations. We understand that we've got to do this together, and hopefully by partnering with other ERGs, along with establishing things that we do out there on our own, will help bring forth not only help to the Black community in this area, but also the Black community in South Dallas, the Black community all over the Metroplex, and lead in a way such that it's an example that other ERGs can follow. That's one of the main things we want to do. We want to make sure that we're leading, but at the same time, listening and taking things from our sister ERGs that they're doing to help better the momentum and keep this drive going, because we don't want to see it die. This has to become second nature for everybody, and not just something that at a moment in time we spoke out and spoke up against.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks for me.
Albert, I love it, man. And so I wore my Make Your Voice Heard shirt today because I was hoping you would harp on that point. We have a responsibility to make our voices heard consistently and loudly. And management leadership has an opportunity to listen and a responsibility to listen. So I'm going to jump straight into the questions because we have a lot of questions. And so we're going to try to get through as many as we possibly can.
Awesome.
The first question that I have here is, our company has decided not to make an external statement, but has committed to actions internally. What are some ways that we can hold the company accountable when they haven't made external commitments? And before we jump into it, I wanted to share. So I was on a call with a group of Black ERGs earlier today, actually, talking about this same thing. And some of the things that we heard were, having the Black ERG help with creating the project plan or the timeline, hosting monthly or quarterly calls with leadership to make sure that they're just having that cadence to keep them accountable, frankly, but also to keep it on their priority list. But what other things could Black ERGs, employees on their own, be doing to hold leadership accountable if there's no external accountability?
So I can take it, but I want to see if Albert and Renita want to answer first. Otherwise, I'll take it.
Oh, Laura, please go ahead.
Okay. So I think it's really important, for any organization, if they're not willing to or okay to, make an external statement, that's okay, right? We have to extend that grace to them, but you have to feel the support internally, right? That's number one. You have to feel the support internally, and you hold them accountable by, like my ERG. How can we help? Tell me. Here's what my thoughts are, but tell me. I want to hear. And so, putting those actions into paper and giving them an idea of what those needs are. Otherwise, no change is going to happen. So you put that project plan together, you track it, and I don't know if you have, checks and balances, a governing board that supports D&I, your executive sponsor for the ERG, your HR sponsor for the ERG, really also leveraging them as your allies to ensure that what you're offering or suggesting to the organization, to make sure you're tracking the progress. Whether it's a quarterly tracking measure system, monthly, we're moving quick. Renita and Albert can attest that we're moving quick, right? Because this is important, this is top of mind, and this in essence will impact everything that we do, right? So again, you have to make sure, and don't be afraid. I mean, Jared, you're wearing that shirt. Albert talked about it. Speak up, right? We want to encourage that. And you have to, again, put some type of checks and balances to track the progress. We built a small task force, and we're meeting every day to track, right? Not my ERG, right? Based on actions that they want, right, in partnership, how are we tracking that? So we're tracking that daily.
So Jared,
I don't know how many other companies can say that.
Jared, I think that's great, and you can hear the passion that Laura has for this. I mean, I'm sure not every corporation has a D&I head that's got that same passion, but let me just tell you this. There's nothing wrong with starting internally and doing something internally first, because at least that's a start, right? And we all know that everything starts with that individual person. It all starts with that one, because when you look in the mirror, at the end of the day, we all need to hold ourselves accountable. So starting internally, as Laura said, putting together the action plans and making sure that things are tracked and that you've got and be tracked and measured. That's the most important thing. But to just throw something out there just to check a box, that doesn't help us. That's not good at all. As a matter of fact, you do need to help in the reverse way, and we don't want to see that happen.
So I guess I completely agree that just throwing something out to check a box isn't helpful, but I think it is concerning, and the people should be concerned if your company does not want to make a public statement, because what we're talking about is so egregious, right? Now, we talked about the different levels of statement. And so I'm willing to offer a little bit more grace to companies that maybe they haven't thought of the whole action plan. And so that can't, they don't want to formulate that yet until they have some work. But if your company isn't willing to even say that the murder of George Floyd was egregious and that they stand against racial injustice, I think it's time to question their commitment to these issues.
Yeah.
And so I do think, and I would encourage you during those situations to utilize some of the resources that we put up. They're all free, they're templates, you can go and use those to encourage your company to make a statement. Because it's so important to me, and I think to a lot of people, that they're on record as saying, we condone this. This is not okay. And I think this time will be very telling as far as the people that are very committed to D&I and the ones that aren't.
Agreed, 100%, Mandy. And people can leverage Kanarys, right, your platform, to be able to make those comments anonymously, right? Because that's where you start to really challenge your organization in an anonymous way. Your voice is still heard, but they can really fully, transparently share their sentiments around that, right? Because I'm sure for the companies that haven't made a statement, I'm sure their people are hurting. I'm sure their people are wondering, am I really supported? Mm-hmm. And if you're listening, CEOs and DI leaders and HR leaders, if you haven't made a statement, think about how your people feel. And in this moment in time, it really determines if that employee is going to continue to be that loyal employee for you. If they don't feel supported, I just don't know how, that would, they would still stay there long term. So think about that from a retention standpoint and even an attraction standpoint, because guess what? Your new potential employees, they will start to look to say, what was Ericsson's statement on this? What was, anyone else's, right? I'm not going to say names, but what were those statements? And if they don't have a statement out there, that person may be hesitant to want to work there, right? They may say, I don't, why would I go there, right? So that's something to think about as you think about retention, but also attracting new talent. They will ask.
Jared?
So I love what you said, everyone, but I really like the holding companies accountable for their commitment, because this time truly will identify the companies that are committed long term and the ones who are just doing it because they felt peer pressure to do so. I've actually had a friend who, in applying for a job, asked, "Can I see the diversity of your board of directors and your senior leadership?" because it wasn't posted on their website. And so people are asking these questions now more than ever. Thankfully, we do post a lot of that EEO information on the Kanarys site. And so that was one of the things that I started looking at when I first was looking around for how diverse are these companies really when you look at their leadership. So one of the things that we've heard constantly is Black people and Black employees need to be using their voice, and Black ERGs is a collection of employees need to use their voice. But oftentimes what then happens is the leaders say, great, you've used your voice, you told us what you want to do, now go do it. And that's putting double the burden on us, right? It's now, we're already tired, we're already feeling the pressure of this, now we have to go and do the work as well. And so I really want to understand what you're doing at Ericsson, but also for any Black employees or Black employee resource groups that are being asked to now go and lead the change. How can they respond to that? How should companies be thinking about this to not put that burden on their Black employees to also be the ones doing the work?
Very good point.
I'm sorry, Laura, go ahead.
Oh, Albert, you can go first. Go ahead, and then I'll speak to that.
Well, thank you, Laura. Jared, I was going to say, fortunately for us at Ericsson, that hasn't been the case. The ERG has stepped up. We've gone to our management, our leadership. Our leadership has listened. Our leadership has not said to us, go out, go forth and prosper. Our leadership has said to us, tell us and give us advice on what needs to be done. We are going to work on the ways to make those items not only measurable based on the actions put in place, but we will come back to you. We will engage you. We will have those recurring meetings and those opportunities to let you know what we have been doing and what we have been tracking and how we've been measuring our progress. And if we don't see the progress the way we want to see it, we'll keep up those actions and make sure that we go even further down into the levels of the organization. Those are the type of things that we want to see other corporations do. Those are the type of things that we want to see happen out in society. It just doesn't happen at the top and then push back down for those of us at the lower levels to go and then solve the issue. No, we need to do this together. And leadership needs to have the strength of character and the backbone to lead in that direction.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And so, Jared, I can attest for us, right? Notice I said that I have a D&I task force. I didn't say the ERG had a D&I task force, right, for the actions from this. So we're partnering with our ERG to really understand, are we on the right path, right? But as far as the onus is on the company, the onus is on us, Ericsson, to be able to deliver back, from those actions that were mapped out, deliver results, measure those results for our people to really ensure that we are making progress. Albert doesn't own the project plan. Fasal doesn't. Renita doesn't. That's within us to own that. And our task force, again, we're really tracking those efforts every single day. And we're actually going to read out to Fasal and Albert, right? It's us reading out, giving them the status of the work that's being done. But right now it's too much. So if anyone who's listening and is putting that burden on your employees, think about that. If you're putting that burden on your ERG, that's not the right approach. Because right now, listen, they're in pain, they're hurting. Don't add another layer of complexity or stress or anxiety to your people, right? They still have to deliver results to you as an organization. You still want them to work 8 to 5, right? And with those business objectives, don't put this additional burden on them. You track it, put the right person in place that's going to help you deliver to what our people need, what your people need, what they want.
Absolutely.
Jared, any other questions? I don't have anything else to add. I think Albert and Laura knocked that one out of the park.
Good. So I'll ask this one question, and then I know we're getting close on time, so I will pause and ask if there's any specific action items that you want to share with the attendees for what their Black ERGs could be doing or their companies could be doing. So be thinking about that as I ask this question, right? So the question that came through is, we recognize that we need to use our voice, Black people need to use our voice, but how do we encourage other ethnic minorities to use their voice in support of us and have that conversation when it's not directly related to them, because they may not be feeling the same way that we're feeling, but that issue still does directly affect them.
Yeah, so if I think about intersectionality, right, this does impact you. This does affect you, right? And if you look at the color of your skin and you say, I don't feel the same way they do, and why should I care? It matters. It matters to everybody. If I think about just the strands of diversity, the intersectionality, yes, by these changes that you will implement, hopefully sustainable systemic changes that you're going to commit to as an organization, you're going to help, your Latino population, your LGBTQ population, your Native Americans, the veterans, everybody, right? Because it intersects. This touches everybody. Your early career professionals, this touches everybody. So if you have that mindset right now, my best advice would go into that learning phase, right? Learn about your own biases. Learn about your own blind spots that you might not know. There's a Harvard test that's free online. If you really need to check your blind spots, that would be my very first thing for you to do, is check your spots. Because if you don't know how to, that this can impacts everyone, then just do that self-reflection for me. And I want to speak to this, Jared, for us at Ericsson. Absolutely, we have 7 ERGs. We've all committed, sending emails and show support. We're actually have a meeting later today to really strategize what's the overall plan, because we are all sympathetic to this. This does affect us, and this is our issue. It is our problem. It's not just our Black or African American employees or ERG. This is our issue overall, and we are going to stand united, and we're going to stand together, and we're going to let our voice be heard, because it's not just one ERGs, it's all 7 collectively working through this.
Laura is exactly correct, Jared. All of the other ERGs have reached out to all of us. Core team members, co-chairs, myself and Kasa, Laura, all of the other 6 ERGs at Ericsson have reached out and asked, what can we do? But along with that, have made suggestions as to what we should do. That was great to know and to hear.
Right. And
Go ahead.
just to bring it home, Mandy, it just goes back to what we originally reiterated. It's the listen, then the learn, then the expand.
And so, Jared, no, I love that. I love that, Renita. I guess, as we think about what we're asking for, right? Because when your question immediately, when I heard it, I was like, what do you mean? How does it affect you? It's humanity, right? You're not seeing someone's humanity if you don't understand how this affects you. Because that's what we're seeing, is a lack of people having the same equitable rights that we all should have as humans. And so that question was really jarring to me, because I know that is the challenge we're up against, right? Getting people to buy in and to be invested in our humanity and our dignity. But it reminds me of one of my favorite poems or quotes, I don't know what you call it, but it was taken from World War II, and it goes, I didn't speak up when they came for the socialists. I'm kind of paraphrasing it, because I wasn't a socialist. I didn't speak up when they came for, the academics, because I wasn't that. I didn't speak up, and he goes through this list of all the people they came for before. And he said, and then they came for me, and there was no one left. And so if you don't understand how we're all connected, that we all have to speak up for each other, that we all have to demand dignity in the humanity of each other, I just feel like that person has a long way to go. And we just hope they have the impetus in them to start that learning. We've been very, very encouraged by people wanting to learn, but the question posed, the way it was posed, is it seems like to me that person isn't even interested in learning, right? And that they don't have the desire with them to seek out that further knowledge and to even understand why these issues are so important and affect all of us. But for the people that are interested and want to be allies and want to know what they can do to be better, we do have some resources as well on that, because I know if anyone's like, I'm sure you guys have been inundated, like we all have, of from friends and colleagues and other people saying, well, what can I do? How can I learn more? And so we've put together a list of resources that we're also putting together on our resources.Kanarys page that you can forward to people so that they can see books, movies, news articles, things like that they can help them on their journey, so that they can begin that learning process.
Mandy, we already have people asking for the link to the poem, so fantastic. I love it. So I want to ask every one of you if you could just share any actions, resources, or just final thoughts with our attendees before we wrap up.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Albert.
No, go ahead, Mandy. I defer to you.
I was going to just thank everyone for participating. Kind of like we started it, my heart is warm and so energized by the amount of people willing to lean in and have these uncomfortable conversations, that are willing to do the work, because this is not something that's going to be solved with one town hall. It's not going to be solved with one statement that we released. It's going to require a sustained effort from us. And so what I encourage folks to do, we have tons of resources, but no matter, whether you use the resources or not, I think the one thing is to take care of yourself is what I want to leave people with. I know that people are under an extreme amount of pressure, the mental drain that all of this has on us, that coupled with the pandemic, people are already under immense amount of strain and pressure. So I would just, my takeaway is for people to take care of yourself. We have to be in this for the long haul. We're going to speak out. We're going to not be silent. We're going to keep moving it forward. But people need to make sure that they have that mental wellness as well, and making sure that they're taking care of their well-being.
I think that was well said, Mandy. I agree with you. The only thing that I have left or to impart on everyone before we wrap up, Jared, is just this: to everyone out there, especially those of non-color, don't let what you think you can't do impede you from doing what you can do.
Hey, Mandy, I just want to say thank you again to Kanarys for giving us, our ERG, a voice. Thank you. We appreciate it. And right now it's a time for self-reflection. That's one thing that I will leave you with. Every person has a role in making our society better. And help to educate others. You also learn, dig deep, what's important to you and your values. Speak up. Now is the time. No longer is the time to be silent. This time after George is when we can really make the societal change. So do it. You have a role, you play a role, and our world is going to be better because of you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll end with just saying, your legacy are the people that you impact. And thank you for having us.
Thank you, everyone.
That was so amazing. Thank you all. Thank you all to our speakers and to our attendees. I think we mentioned it a few times, but if you go to our resources page, resources.kanarys.com, you'll have access to all the resources that we talked about for free. We also encourage you to just check out the platform in general. It will blow you away with how cool it is. Anyways, if you have other questions for us, please continue to engage with us on our social media. We have our social media: Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. You can reach us at any of those platforms. Again, we thank you so much for your time today. And I just want to say again, have a wonderful day and stay strong.
And one other thing before we sign out, please give us a day to upload all this. I don't want people to go right away to the resources and say, where's the video? Where is this? Give us a day. It usually takes us a day or two, and then we'll have everything uploaded.
Yep.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Jared.
Take care.